So I'm a dying breed, someone that actually still likes tablets in 2020. And I've been waiting for this. I really do like my Samsung Galaxy Tab S6, but I just always wanted a larger version. I felt that the 10.5 inches, a little cramped, especially when it comes to the keyboard, but I've got now the new model. So this is the Tab S7 Plus. It's now got 120 Hz refresh rate. They're finally catching up to Apple, but they're never going to catch up to Apple. Come on, let's face it, they're still always going to be behind. However, it's really nice so far in my time testing this one out. Now, there's a couple of things you should know. That this model here, of course, does have the Snapdragon 865 Plus, but Samsung kind of screwed over Europe, didn't they? They gave us all the Exynos processors. At least the tablet didn't get that bad deal, but we also only have the 6 GB of RAM, which is kind of weird considering the phones all start with a base, the Note series, the Note 20 Ultra and the Note 20, with 8 GB, but we only get 6 on this. And yes, it is an expensive tablet, but if you're still into your tablets, this is Android's best, definitely. Okay, so there's the tablet. It's in a little protective sleeve there from stopping it getting scratched up. And oh wow, that feels so light for 12.4 inches and incredibly thin. I will measure that and weigh it shortly just after this, but we'll have a look first. We've got the new S Pen here. You can see the button there on the sides, and this does charge, of course, wirelessly like the other one. You put it on the back of the tablet, just like the Tab S6. And here is our charger here. So this charger is rated to 15 watts maximum only, so that is disappointing. Come on, Samsung. It supports 45 watts, the fast charging, super fast charging, but you need to buy that separately, not included in the box. And right here we have an eject tool for the micro SD card slot or SIM tray if you do happen to buy the LTE 5G version, and a little bit of paperwork right in here. And they do also include a Type-C to USB cable. Okay, so let's have a look at how much this thing weighs because it's super light. 572 grams, excellent. I also did measure it, and it is 6.6 millimeters, the thickness. That's not including our camera, which does stick out by an additional 2 millimeters or so. So on the back here, you see it does say that it's it is sound by AKG, and I'll test in this video just how they sound, and maybe even compare them to my Samsung Galaxy Tab S6. If they have improved them, do they actually sound any better? So there are some ugly antenna lines you can see left and right here. Sadly, if it's got a metal build, they have to use the antenna lines, of course, to get maximum throughput there for our signal strength. So with the camera bulge here, that it does actually have a little bit of a metal frame around the glass, the lens there over those two cameras. So the main camera is 13 megapixels and a 5 megapixel ultra wide. Now personally, I could have just done with one camera on the rear. I don't need an ultra wide, especially on a 12-inch tablet, but it is there if we need it. So how does that stylus work here? Now, when you just place it on the back, there's magnets that just pull it in there, and it will then start to charge if the tablet is powered on. So it's not a great storage location at all. Very easy to knock off, as I found all the time with my Tab S6. But when you get the case for it or the keyboard, there's actually a little flap that goes over this. And what I'm talking about is this right here. With the Tab S6, you'll see the stylus is located right here, and you just pull that flap back so then you don't end up losing it. So here with my Tab S6, you can see the difference in size between the new S7 Plus here. So 12.4 inches versus the 10.5. This is what I've been after for so long. It's just a larger version of this particular tablet, which we have now with the updated faster internals. So the frame around this, very thin and really good. High quality, premium finish to this. There's no sharp edges, there's no gaps, there's no issues I can see so far with this one. So volume up and down button, and then the power button. These are both made out of metal. They don't rattle and have a good feel to them too when you press them in. They feel really good. So microphone up the top here. We've got the SIM tray and micro SD card. So it would be a SIM tray if you do happen to buy the LTE version, 5G version of this particular tablet. So on the right, we've got our USB Type-C port here. So this does support video out, and you can use it with their desktop mode, which is Samsung DeX. There are 2 of the AKG speakers here on this side, and then on the left, you will find the other 2 and the second microphone. And finally, along the bottom, you'll find 3 Pogo port connector pins here, and then the 2 holes there for the stays for the keyboard, which I will have later on in the full review. So the Tab S6 keyboard, you can see even though the little stays line up, you can see that does line up perfectly. The poker ports are 4 versus 3 there, so it's clearly not going to work the older keyboards. And it would look a little bit silly having a 10.5-inch keyboard design on a 12-inch tablet. So looking at the front of it, the screen bezels, very slim, they're 9mm. I really wouldn't want to go actually any slimmer than this. I did use for a while the MatePad Pro before I had to send it back, and that had slimmer bezels, and I just thought they were a little too slim. Camera up top is 8 megapixels here. Now it is interesting to note here that they went with a sharper, squared off edge on the new Tab S7 Plus, and also the Tab S7 will have the same finish to it. I prefer the rounded edges on the Tab S6. This actually feels a little bit more comfortable in hand. Not that it's not comfortable with the Tab S7 Plus, that is. It's not an issue. It's just I think the rounded edges are a little nicer. So first look at our screen here. Now I've just noticed that it doesn't seem to be, when you look really close at it, quite as sharp as the 10.5-inch version, the Tab S6, its predecessor, but that's understandable because it's a larger screen now, even though the resolution is very good, but you can't actually see any pixels. So keyboard, you can see quite nice and large right here, and I'm actually just about to connect up to my Wi-Fi 6 network, so it does support your wireless 6 standard too with this one. Now, if you're coming from the old model, which I am here, you can just connect up a USB Type-C to Type-C cable and transfer everything over in the setup process, which is rather handy. And part of the process, you can also set up your fingerprint too if you want to do that in the setup, or you can just do it later on. Now, I'll report back after a week exactly how this is working if I have any issues with it. So I'm pretty much set up here, but there is a firmware update, and this is great because Samsung can be a little bit slow, but being such a new release, there were obviously a few little last minute things that they needed to push through and fix. So that's good. I'm going to download that, and so for my review, of course, I will be on the latest up-to-date firmware. So being a Samsung phone, that yes, they do put quite a bit of bloatware and things on here. So you got Microsoft's apps pre-installed on there. So they must have teamed up with Microsoft, of course. Microsoft paying the money, Samsung, to have that already there. Netflix as well is there, but this is handy. Some of these apps I know are handy to some people. Spotify is there. So there's quite a bit of bloatware on here. So these apps, you don't need them, of course. It's very simple just to simply uninstall them there, get rid of those. But I wanted to point out that we do have a bit on here. So Google bloatware as well too. I prefer to actually have the decision myself on what I want on my tablet and not just have all these apps crammed on there. But most manufacturers are doing this. It's pretty much across the board. Everyone is doing that. So there's a bit of Samsung bloat on here as well. Other things that you probably don't actually ever use or need. The good thing is with the software, it even states that at the start, that they will put them into what is like a hibernation mode, the apps that you don't use, to cut down on the battery use there. So that is very handy to have. So the first thing you notice is how smooth and fast this feels. Because we've got the Snapdragon 865 Plus, but it's more because of the 120Hz refresh rate, means that this thing just feels so smooth and fluid. Now we do have options, of course, for triggering and having our full screen gestures, which I do have enabled. You can either use their gestures, which are the 3 little tabs on the bottom for your recent apps, your back and your home, but I prefer it this way. It's just similar then to all my other devices. It's all up to you to configure that, of course, how you want. Under display here, so they don't actually call it refresh rate, but they call it, Samsung, the motion smoothness. So right here, we've got this option to have it set then on to standard. Now by default, it's high, which is 120 Hz, which you want to probably always leave it on. But for those days that you really need great battery life, then standard. In my full review, I will probably, or in a separate video, do a test here, 60 Hz versus the 120, to find out what kind of difference you can expect if you really need that battery life and don't care too much about the 120 Hz, then it's a good option there to have with this. So overall, very smooth performance. These are all just first impressions. I'm getting myself set up. I'll show you a few other tests as well in this particular video before I work on that final full review. So this is not hype when I say that this is the best screen I have seen in a tablet. It is really amazing, very nice. So 650 nits maximum brightness I'm measuring, very good colors. Now I've got it on the vivid mode, so it looks a little bit oversaturated, but what about the blacks? Remember, the Galaxy Tab S6 did have some units issues with deep blacks, having a strange banding to them or a little bit of a strange tint, ununiformed black. But no, it is completely uniform here. I'm not seeing anything wrong with my unit that I have, which is fantastic. It means I don't have to send it back for a replacement or anything like that. So an amazing screen here, really responsive to touch, no lag, gestures work fine. Really, you cannot get any better in a tablet, I feel. Now jumping in here into YouTube, Netflix as well, and Amazon Prime Video is all going to work in the full HD settings, and HDR support. Later on I will check that because I'm interested to see that anything that supports HDR, it should actually work with this tablet. But maybe there could be some software problems because it's such a new tablet that it might not actually be listed as a supported device yet in Netflix, that is. So with YouTube here, the options we've got for our resolution is you can actually go right up here to 1440p. So it's not a 4K screen, so 1440p is normal. You don't need 4K on a screen like this because it's just going to be scaling it down, of course. So it looks good. The performance is absolutely great as you'd expect for such a high-spec tablet. But the main thing is those 4 speakers either side here, we've got the 2 of them, side firing. They are really, really great. So yes, when you are holding it in landscape, you do tend to block those speakers. And if they had them on the top and bottom here, because I think most people will be using the tablet in landscape, I think it would have been a bit better if they'd done that and changed it and swapped it around a bit. But then, of course, when you've got the keyboard attached, it wouldn't actually work then. So here's a sample of exactly how they sound. They are fantastic. Bit of bass, really good volume, powerful speakers in such a thin tablet. So when you are watching 16:9 content, this isn't 16:9 by the way, you will have borders top and bottom. This is the worst case example here. So when you're watching, say, a movie, you're going to have these borders, unfortunately. But I don't think too many people are going to be worried by this. So here's what our stylus looks like next to the last gen model, which is from the Tab S6. They're about the same size. The new one is slightly longer, button in the same location, rubber tip on the end, so using it on the glass, it does feel excellent. And this one now has, of course, the faster 9mm latency, so much quicker. So the stylus has that improved latency, and I'm not actually noticing too much of a difference when I use my old Tab S6, then I move over to the new one. I think marginally, you can barely tell. And yes, the old stylus does actually work exactly the same on the new tablet here. It doesn't really seem to me to be that much slower though. I can't tell any difference really between them, to be honest here. Even though this is just my first impressions and hands-on video, here's the Antutu score. So this is the version 8.4 off their website, the latest one, and it gets a very good score. So I did expect the CPU score to be a little bit higher and maybe the memory speeds and the UI, the UX. But overall, it's not bad. But this score is about the same as some of the 855 mobiles that I have been reviewing in the channel. But the 865 Plus definitely has a faster GPU. Very good score on the GPU. So if you game a lot, especially at 120 frames per second, you may see a bit of a benefit there versus, of course, other different systems out there. But the best in terms of GPU performance and raw performance is still going to be the iPad Pros. No doubt about that there. But have a look at this. Very good internal storage speeds. Now, this is the 128GB version. You get about 110 gigabytes free, I think it was, on first boot. And if you do get the 256GB version or the 512, do expect to see much faster sequential write speeds and random write speeds. Normally, the higher capacities will offer much better speeds there. But this is very good. No way is this going to bottleneck this particular super quick, very fast tablet here. It is really quick. So I'll briefly show you a little bit of gaming performance here. This is Shadowgun Legends on the Ultra setting, and it is very smooth. Now, this game does not support 120 frames per second yet. Okay, I think it's just a little bit too new. So you need to hunt around and find the uncapped frame rate games like Mobile World Legends, Real Racing 3. There's actually a huge list of them, about 50 games in total or so. But is 12.4 inches too big to game on? I don't think it is, and I don't have super large hands, I would say about medium size, and it is comfortable. It's really not too bad because it is a light tablet, and it's not really going to bog you down too much with its weight after a while playing this. And it's so immersive with such a large, nice screen, and of course those amazing 4 AKG speakers. And I have not forgotten about the best feature of this tablet and what I absolutely love about my Tab S6 is Samsung's DeX, D-E-X, okay? If you understood something else, that's my terrible New Zealand accent, I do apologize. So multitasking, very, very good, so fast and fluid. So Chrome is open here, the Gamer Hub, I've even got Shadowgun Legends, so you could even run 2 games at once or 3 games if you wanted to do so, not a problem there. And this performance, very, very good here. Now you can also run the DeX mode via the Type-C cable, video out to HDMI 2 with a 4K TV, connect up a Bluetooth gamepad, Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, and it really does offer that authentic, true desktop experience. So here's a sample with the front-facing cameras, and they look really good. This is better than all of those laptops I have tested that would not have this kind of quality. So good front-facing camera for your Zoom calls, for Skype and everything else. I think everyone's going to be pretty happy with this. And then also the audio quality. The mics you're listening to are the inbuilt two microphones there. They are doing a very good job. So I'm happy with this quality. I think for a tablet, it's excellent. I will show you a very quick preview of what you can expect from the rear cam. So this front cam is 1080p maximum. The rear camera is 4K. So here's a 4K sample. So this quality I think is good for a tablet. You've got to remember this is a tablet and it's really coming out kind of like, say, a Samsung Galaxy S8 or S9 video quality. Perhaps not quite as good, but for 4K I think it's very decent. We cannot shoot ultra-wide video, however. Not that I think it really matters. Who's going to be holding up a 12-inch tablet to shoot ultra-wide video out when you're sightseeing or something? Definitely not me. And very briefly, a couple of photo samples. So yes, it does actually take a very good photo, this one here. So if you need to, you can take photos of text boards, classrooms, things like that. It's going to come out, it's going to be clear, usable photos. All right, so without a doubt, this is Android's best tablet, the best Android tablet I have used. So quick, amazing screen, probably the best tablet screen, full stop, that is out there, okay? I know the iPad Pro's got a pretty decent screen in it, right? The 12-inch version as well, but this one is definitely the best larger tablet screen that I have seen. The brightness is very, very good, 650 nits. Of course, it's fully laminated, Gorilla Glass, and a really good AMOLED screen in here. There's no issues on my unit here with the lowest brightness setting. Looking at deep blacks, I'm not seeing some funny banding, patchy issues that we did actually have on some of the Tab S6 models. So yes, it is expensive, 699 euros. For only 6 gigabytes of RAM. It should be 8 gigabytes if you ask me, like their phones, but anyway, at least we do have the Snapdragon 865 Plus, and they didn't do something silly and decide to go with the Exynos in their tablet lineup. So worldwide, it has the Snapdragon 865 Plus. Very good performance. The GPU performance is up versus the Snapdragon 865, and the difference between the 855 and the 865, you only really notice in synthetic benchmarks. So if you actually do have the Tab S6, which I do, there's not a huge difference in performance apart from, of course, the screen refresh rate. Is it worth it? If you're a Tab 6 owner, should you actually, with the S6, go and move up to the Tab S7 Plus? I think only if you want the larger screen and the larger keyboard space, because most people are still pretty happy with 60 Hertz. I don't think it's a massive enough difference to warrant spending all that extra money. Now, Samsung probably doesn't want me to say that, but of course this is a unit I bought myself, so I'm free to talk as per normal. I don't have any restrictions here in what I can say, and they're not pre-approving any videos, of course. So really, I think it's a marvelous tablet. Those speakers are really loud. 3.5mm headphone jack, sorely missed. I wish they brought it back somehow, but not gonna happen here. Worth the money in the end. If you are after Android and you're not even looking at iPad OS, you don't want an iPad Pro, you must have Android. This is the best option, and I would definitely go for this tablet. Now, the Tab S7, if these videos do well, I may purchase the Tab S7, but I'm not too happy it's only got an IPS screen in it. Part of the reason to go for the Samsung lineup was you get the Super AMOLED panels from Samsung. At least we have it with this one. So thank you so much for watching the video, and I do hope to see you back with the full final review coming in probably about a week's time with, yes, the keyboard as well. We'll be covering that. It should be shipping out in the next few days.